Welcome to the Chelsea Skidmore Show. It's me, Chelsea Skidmore. I haven't recorded an episode in a long time. I feel like it's almost been a month. I don't feel like checking how long, but I've just been really busy lately. Just been performing a lot. Had 2 weeks of some really good shows. I opened for Bobby Lee. I opened for Joey Diaz. I showcased for Just for Laughs. I don't know. It felt like a good week. And I just have felt overwhelmed. I haven't been able to record an episode. And I wanted to do a solo one today. So I want to do one about getting sober and kind of just talking about why I got sober and what happened and what my life is like now. It's kind of like similar to a share that you would hear in a 12-step program, which is where they focus on what happened, what it's like, and, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Sorry. Whenever I record these solo episodes, it's always so weird. Plus, I just started eating pizza, and now the pizza is across the room, and I'm like, fuck, I want the rest of it. Anyways, wow. I've not checked in a while. I'm exhausted. I'm really tired. I've just been going, and today is kind of like a free day. I work tonight for the first time in a week, and it's just nice to not have to think about memorizing a new joke for 5 minutes or, for fucking anything else stressful. It's been stressful. Brody passed away a week ago, which is upsetting. And everyone's really feeling that. And, he was such an original, awesome person. And, everyone, it's just very sad. Anyways, last night I was doing a show, and, while I was on stage, there was this wasted woman who was in the back of the room. She kept shouting shit out. No one was quieting her down. I ended up using her as a part of my set, kind of just making her the punchline of everything. So I used it to my advantage, and I included her instead of like yelling at her, and it was fun. But afterwards, I was, watching, it was for Joey Diaz. I was watching his set after me, and I noticed the woman was like nodding out wasted on the arm of like a younger guy who appeared to be her boyfriend. And I was just like, damn, that woman needs AA. I don't know. You can kind of spot people who just need help and are alcoholics. And this is so weird, but like after the show, and then like there was a woman who was next to her who kept looking over at her friend and checking in to make sure she was okay, and she was concerned, and it was like, damn, it looks like she's been through this a lot with her. And it's like, you could just kind of, it's like gaydar. I have like AA-dar, and I kind of just saw, what the situation was. It's another night that she went out with her friend, and her friend got too drunk, but she was like in her 50s, and it's only cute for so long. I got sober when I was when I turned 25, but I've relapsed since then, but I consistently did stay sober. But let's just back it up. So anyways, I went up to someone who was in that group after the show, and I said, I was watching a friend and I think she needs help. I don't usually do that. I just felt inspired to. I guess I had been thinking about recording this episode, and it was just kind of on my mind. But anyways, I'm going to start from the beginning and just kind of explain. And I'll have 3 years sober in May. I would have had 6 years, but I relapsed 3 years ago, and I'll get into all of that. But I started drinking. I grew up in New York, in Westchester, a suburb outside of New York City. And I started drinking, I think, when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I remember the first time I got drunk, I was hanging out with my friend Jackie at my house, and my parents had these old, dusty liquor bottles, with some gross-ass fucking liquor. And we just started drinking them and taking shots. We poured shots. We must have had like 10. each. And we got so drunk and it was really fun. And we were like breaking dishes. I remember we were trying to make like Stouffer's macaroni and cheese and like it was still frozen. My friend Jackie actually fell asleep in my backyard and woke up and the sprinklers were on. I think that's so funny. And we were like, let's do it again. And, you know, we didn't get caught. It was just really fun. It was really wild. And from the start, my drinking was out of control. And when I say out of control, it means I never just had one drink. I never could just have one drink. And it made me feel uncomfortable having just one drink. I've never in my life gone out to eat and been like, damn, I just want a glass of wine with dinner. Like that would be a waste and there would be no point. Because when you drink to, you know, you drink to black out. You drink to get fucked up. I never drank to get a buzz in my entire life. And I still find it strange that some people can do that. I mean, it's like, you know, when you go to a bar or restaurant and you see that one person who had 3 sips of their wine and they haven't finished it. And they had like one glass the entire dinner and they're not even going to finish it. And you're like, aren't you going to finish your wine? And they're like, oh, no, I'm good. And it's like, what the fuck? Was that a pairing? I mean, I don't know. It's crazy, man. I'll never understand that. But, you know, we got alcohol really easily when we were younger. You know, one of my friend's parents were an alcoholic. They always had a big gallon of vodka out on their countertop that was unpoliced. They never hid it. It was just always available to refill their drinks. So we would always drink from that. We had older siblings get us alcohol. There was places that didn't card if you went in there in a bikini to like these Spanish bodegas and you could buy alcohol there, which I started doing when I was like 16. But we didn't have a problem getting it. So I was always the one who got the most fucked up. We would drink a lot in the woods because we lived in like a deciduous area. And I would always be like passed out and people, or what they call deuced out, and people would have to carry me around from location to location. I would be throwing up. I was, blacked out. I would hook up with like every guy, which is gross, but I did. And when I was 16, I threw a house party and the cops came and I ended up getting arrested and I was sentenced to doing community service and going to an outpatient rehab for giving alcohol to minors. And at that treatment center, they told me I was an alcoholic. I had no idea I was, but I truly didn't care either because, it's like, so what? I'm fucking 16 and like I'm having fun drinking and it was my life. Partying used to be my life. So I was like, I'm not stopping now. I have so much ahead of me. I used to get like pee from my friend's younger sister for my drug test there, which was kind of funny and crazy. And I had to go to my first AA meeting while I was in that program, but I didn't hear anything anyone was saying, so I started to go when I was 16, essentially, but only to get like a card signed saying that I was there. I never took it seriously. I also started doing coke during this time. And prior to my arrest, when I was 15, I got caught doing a lot of coke and I was sent to a boarding school in Switzerland by my parents as a way, I guess, to get me to stop partying. But it only made it worse because they don't, there's no drinking age there. And so, when I was smoking weed every single day, blah, 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 I was always blacking out and I was always just like throwing up. I was always the one who got the most fucked up. I remember my neighbors next door had a pool and we would get wasted and go over there. And I remember taking off all my clothes and falling into these bushes naked and like waking up covered in like all these scratches and stuff. I don't know why I was naked. I think I was going to go in a pool, skinny dip in their pool. Anyways, I went off to college when I was 17 in Hawaii. My drinking really took off there. Obviously, we weren't policed at all by our parents. Suddenly, we could do whatever we wanted. I started dating someone who was an alcoholic when I was 18. And I think that's when my drinking really progressed because we were in an abusive relationship. He was 9 years older than me and he could drink a lot. So I drank to catch up with him. I, would match his drinks and, started getting heavier into coke and weed and everything else. And that relationship ended up, getting really bad, and I left Hawaii after 3 years. But while I was there, my drinking and drug use was out of control. I had my own radio show on like my college radio station in Hawaii, and I got kicked out because I had a lot of dead air because I was doing coke when I was DJing. I was working at a strip club at the time, and I would come back and go DJ, and I was like completely fucked up, and I'd be doing lines and be like, oh, nothing was on air for 7 seconds. And I really regret, losing that because I really loved doing it because I grew up loving Howard Stern and it was really fun. And I think I must have been there for like 6 months. And, I would drive drunk all the time. I would be on the opposite end of the road sometimes and look up and just laugh and like not even realize. I was like, oops, whoop. Shouldn't be on this side, but it was never like a serious thing to me. And then one time I drove home drunk from work and I ran 3 red lights and 2 cop cars were following me. It was like I was in a Grand Theft Auto, and they followed me into my apartment complex and they were like, stay in your car when I tried to get out. And I told them I was being stalked by someone who was following me home from work one night, and they let me go. I got out of it, but I should have gotten a DUI. And hold for water. I just heard that I'm loud at drinking water. Is that true? Anyways, I got out of that, and you'd think I would look at my life and be like, damn, like I shouldn't drive drunk anymore. But no, of course not. Like that experience did not change anything. I also got caught with alcohol in my dorm room when I was a freshman in college and was sent to AA again there. And it's funny, I kept getting sent to AA, but I just could not hear the message. So there's a whole thing kind of with alcoholism where you just, have to be willing and able to hear the message, and you just have to keep hitting a bottom until it's time to get sober, and until then it's going to be hard to, which sucks. Anyways, I went back to New York. My grades were so bad from Hawaii that I was like kicked out for a semester. So when I tried to transfer back to the school in New York, they were like, your grades are too bad. And then I lied and told them that my roommate killed themselves. And I was really depressed because I saw that movie Dead Man on Campus, and they made up some lie like that and got all A's for the semester. And the person at admissions believed me, and they felt really bad for me. So I got into that school and I started continuing. And, when I look back on my drinking and drug use, all I really have to say is I was just really into coke because I was crazy with coke. I couldn't drink without having to have coke, which is something that happens. There's this chemical that it creates in your body where if you drink, you have to have coke. Look it up. It's a thing. And, my partying just continued. And I remember one summer I had to go to a summer school class and I did coke every single night for 3 months straight. And one time when I was in class, I didn't know how to read. Like my brain just stopped working and I couldn't read, and I saw the words on paper, but I couldn't string them together. And that was like totally scary. But of course, nothing changed. I missed a lot of things, being fucked up and hungover. I remember I was like partying on coke and I missed like my mom's Mother's Day. I missed my brother's birthday, and I would make up all these excuses and just not like come to family functions, and a lot of lies. And I would do crazy things. Like I would go to a lot of weird after parties and end up in like, I remember one time I ended up like really far out in Brooklyn, and I hitchhiked back to the city with like a stranger who friended me on Facebook later. But it was just like weird shit like that. Like that I shouldn't, it's dangerous. I used to hitchhike all the time in Hawaii. It's so fucking weird that I would do that because Hawaii was filled with like a lot of crazy meth addicts. But I was like obsessed with like living on the edge. You know what I mean? Anyways, I'm trying to like reflect on what it was like. Yeah. And then in New York, so my Coke usage got worse and worse. And, I'd be doing it for like 16 hours at a time until I couldn't even talk every single time I did it. And basically, my body just started to not be able to physically handle it anymore because all of the wear and tear I was doing on myself. Like, I thought I had a heart problem, and I had to wear like an EKG around my heart for like a heart monitor for a couple days. I went to the hospital like 4 times in the span of a year for Coke. And it just started getting really bad. And then I was kind of at my worst, and not kind of, I was at my worst. I was out in LA, and I just had this one crazy night that like ended everything for me. And I was on Molly, and we ended up going to an after hours at this weird guy's place who had like 10 tarantula cages and all these steroid pills in his bathroom. And he was crazy, and he said he like watched his dad shoot his mom, and he had like a bat, and he was crazy. And it was just too much for me. I was just done. And at that point, I had been sober for 3 years. I mean, at that point, I stayed sober after that for 3 years, up until 3 years ago when I relapsed, which was over a breakup, over someone cheating on me. But anyways, so what I did in between that is that I threw myself into, 12-step programs and getting sober. And, for those first few weeks of trying to get sobriety initially, I lived my whole life to go out. Like, all I did was go out and party. Every single night I went out to clubs. So I was scared to like go outside of my apartment because, alcohol was everywhere, and I was afraid that I would be too weak to drink it. So all I did was I stayed in bed or in my apartment for like 2 weeks straight, and I didn't leave my apartment. I watched the entire series of Breaking Bad, like 8 seasons in 2 weeks. And I didn't go out to clubs for like 4 months. And when I finally went out to one, when I had 4 months of sobriety, I was like, this place fucking sucks. And all the people who I used to party with were all in the same place. And it just like, I don't know, it was a moment. It just looked not attractive anymore. I moved to LA, and my whole life I wanted to be a writer, an actor, and a comedian, and I wanted to do stand-up. And finally, when I got sober, I was able to start pursuing this. I started with UCB 8 years ago when I initially got sober. Oh, wait. So I must have been sober longer. I think I had a lot of like relapses in the beginning, because now I'm realizing I'm not calculating correctly, because I know I had like 60 days sober when I went to UCB. And I started with the UCB, and then I started doing open mics finally, like 8 years ago, but started more seriously doing stand-up as I moved to LA and right before. And, today I'm doing everything I've always wanted to do in my life, and I truly attribute all of it to getting sober. I would not have the life today that I am living unless I got sober. It was like a huge dream of mine to fall in love and get married, and I owe that to sobriety. Doing stand-up, writing scripts, doing everything I'm doing. Everything is from being sober. And I would never be able to accomplish any of the things or pursue any of this stuff if I was getting fucked up. Because you just can't. Some people can. Some people are high-functioning addicts. But I personally was a very low-functioning addict. If I got fucked up, that's the only thing I was doing. I was just sitting around and drinking and doing coke and talking. I was not working. I was not pursuing anything. I did not have the mind space, and I was full of fear. And that was like one of the hugest things. It's like when you're getting fucked up, like you're full of fear. It's like I knew this wasn't the life that I was supposed to be living, doing coke, you know, waking up at 10 p.m. at night, doing coke until, 10 p.m. and then going to sleep again and like taking fucking tons of Xanax to fall asleep and then being hungover the whole next day and wanting to die. And it's like, I just knew deep down inside of me. People ask, how did you stay sober? How did you get sober? How did you stay sober? I knew it was never the life I was supposed to be living. I knew I was destined for something greater. And the stuff I'm doing today is the stuff that and I know I'm going to go further with it, but, it's the steps of taking the steps of getting to where I want to be. It's so weird doing a solo podcast because I'm like, am I fucking making sense? And then I start talking weird and whatever. I should have mapped out what I was going to talk about. I guess basically my life just hit a bottom enough where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick of living the way I was living. I was like 26 or 25 and I was like, I'm fucking done. And my life started changing when I got sober. I started to become a more honest person, and honesty is a huge thing to have when you're sober, and you grow more and more with that. And just, self-worth, self-esteem. I didn't have any self-worth when I was drinking. I was a fucking hoe. And I would do the craziest stuff. And, I look back on the person I was and I get sick. When I see like young girls out who are in their early 20s, who are wasted, having fun, sometimes not anymore, but I used to be kind of jealous and be like, damn, they could just go out there and be fun. They could just go out there, have fun, no consequences. But, you never really know what it's really like for someone. And also, I'm so glad not to be that dumb fucking 20-year-old anymore. I was so dumb when I was 20. It's like some people, I don't know. You have to want to have a better life, I think, to get sober and believe that there's a better life out there for you. And so what I started doing is I started going to 12-step meetings. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I avoided people, places, and things. And my life just got better and better. I moved to LA and I started, I got a job. You have to get a sober job. I got my job at the Comedy Store, and it's been an incredible experience working there and building relationships. And, it's a spiritual program as well when you get sober. So, it's kind of getting that higher power to instill your trust into, it's like you've done sobriety. You've tried to get sober on your own and it hasn't worked. Why don't you put it into the hands of a higher power, of something that you can kind of pray to and, have watch over you and look out for you. And that's kind of what the third step is. Came to believe that's the second. Came to believe a higher power. Fuck. I fucked it up. I don't know. It's like talking a lot gets kind of tiring. I felt like I was like on one and now I just kind of crashed. And now I'm like, what am I talking about? The fuck am I talking about? Getting sober. I don't know. It's just changed my life so much. I thought this would be a longer episode. Now I'm kind of like out of things to say. Basically, it's just changed my life a lot. I've gotten a lot of things from it, and I would not be where I am today without it. So I don't know. I thought this episode was going to be better. Basically, what I want to do is I want to put out the message to people who are struggling to get sober. People who want to stop drinking, but they're afraid their life won't be as good. My life is better. I didn't realize that I was kind of socially awkward until I fucking got sober. And I didn't realize that I was a shy person, but that's okay. You get more comfortable. It is uncomfortable in the beginning being sober in being in social situations because you don't realize how fucking shy you are. But it gets better and better with time. And, I started praying and meditating every day, which helps immensely. I check in a notebook. I do the morning pages, which is from something called The Artist Way. Going to meetings, working out, and having that camaraderie of friends who are sober and that you can talk to about it and just not being alone. It's a lonely world when you're partying. You can be in a room full of people, but pretty much they're usually a room full of strangers and you're talking to them about nothing. And then the next day it's just like so lonely, and it's just life doesn't have to be like that. I have quality relationships today. I focus on quality, not quantity. I have a much smaller circle of friends today. A much smaller circle. And I could be guarded and I don't let people in. And I'm careful. But I think that's a good thing. I've had a problem with wondering if that's bad. I've talked to my therapist about it and they said it's fine. It's getting older. I fucking hate parties. I hate parties. But if I'm not invited to one, I'm going to hate that even more. I want to be invited, but I want to choose to not go. There's nothing there for me. I don't want to impress a bunch of people. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'd so much rather be a homebody. It's insane. I lived to go out, and now I just am so happy being at home when I can. I don't want to have to prove myself to anyone. I'm happy just being me, and that, has come with time. I think it comes with getting older too. I don't know. I guess if you're thinking about getting sober, give it a try. Try it for 90 days. That's something that we say in 12-step programs. Give it a try for 90 days. See how it goes. And if at the end of the 90 days you want to go back to doing it, go back to doing it. Go back to getting fucked up. But people say that because your life gets incredibly different and changes and gets better. So you can always give it a try. And if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. But please be open-minded. And, I want everyone to have the same experience that I had. And life just doesn't have to be like this if you're struggling. So, I don't know. That's it. Thank you guys for listening.